Hello and welcome to Unrecognised Heroes, the official podcast brought to you by the National AI Awards. This is the podcast where we dive into the latest innovations, challenges, and success stories in the world of technology. I'm your host, Ellie, and today I'm excited to be joined by AI Innovation Lead from the Citation Group, Rich Merrett. Rich, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ellie.
It's great having you with us today, Rich. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, who the Citation Group are, and what they do?
Yeah, so I'm the AI innovation lead at Citation Group. Citation Group is a business that helps with compliance. We help small and medium sized businesses with all of their compliance needs, whether that's legal, whether that's health and safety, whether it's ISO training and background checks. So we have quite a large remit, but we help I say small and medium sized businesses across on that journey that they have. So my role as AI innovation lead, I've been there for just over 18 months now. I didn't actually start in AI. I started out my career as a teacher. I then moved from a teacher into tech. I was an IT teacher, to be fair, but then moved more into tech, moved into project management, and then from there I started my own business, working on voice technology and trying to help people with degenerative brain disorders lead better lives with the help of voice technology. The pandemic came along. I needed to make some money, so because that wasn't making any at the moment at that time. So I then went and worked for an agency with it's still working in voice technology, specifically with Alexa. Did some really cool stuff. Got to work with Amazon very, very closely, and with Disney very, very closely, and with Sony very, very closely. So on some really, really cool projects. And then as those were wrapping up, it was around the time that ChatGPT came out, and I was able to spend sort of 6, 8, 9 weeks just constantly just working on it, seeing what it could do, testing it no end, and looking at all the capabilities. So the company then shifted from voice tech into more Gen AI, and was able to really kind of test that and help drive that change. And then was made redundant at the end of the year and it was the same time that custom GPTs came out. I created Rich GPT, so put my CV into ChatGPT, which some might think as ethically odd and not something they would necessarily want to do, but I'm fully embracing it.
Yeah.
And that helped me land this role as the AI innovation lead here at Citation.
Fantastic. I mean, that's such a broad selection of career background, isn't it, to take into where you are now? But I
I've been
love
around a bit, yeah.
they all tie together though into probably exactly what your role is now. So, do you want to talk us a bit about your day to day, what that looks like for you now, Rich?
I mean, yeah. When I'm not in meetings, then there's a lot of a lot of what I do is kind of looking at ideas. So taking a lot of ideas that people within the business have had, helping to categorize those, work out if they're the ones that we want to move forward, and then seeing how we can take those and use them in the business. So there's two real ways that I look at AI within Citation. To be fair, within every business, and I have an analogy which I've been using. It did used to use prosthetic limbs, but I've moved away from prosthetic limbs because people were getting upset about it. So I now use a driverless car analogy. So the way that we've got AI at Citation, we've got kind of two core ways of using it. We've got the power steering, which is your co-pilot, your augmentation, your tools that try and help you on your day-to-day. So not really changing anything we're doing, but just making our lives better. So with power steering, we can drive a car without it. It's just much, much easier with it, and it kind of makes us better drivers because of it. So that's one way we're looking at stuff. The other way is we're zooming out. We're taking a look at the entire process, the end-to-end journey of what we're doing, and how can we kind of rebuild that experience. So that is kind of thinking it more like a driverless car. So we're taking that experience and we're changing it. We're looking at how we can really integrate AI into the heart of what we're doing, and kind of build the process around that. And in some cases it might be that we don't actually need that steering wheel anymore, so we can throw that steering wheel out. Some people like to keep that steering wheel in just as a bit of a safety blanket, but it's a really interesting way of doing it. We've done it in a numerous different ways at this point. We've delivered lots of training sessions company wide. We've delivered lots of bespoke training sessions, but more recently we've been doing hackathons with specific teams. And they've been really engaged, and really helped with that kind of that AI literacy. So we've done it so far. We've done it with the engineering team, to help work out how within the engineering pipeline we can integrate AI across that in a range of different ways and using a range of different tools as well. We also did one with the product team, looking at how they can go through from in their life cycle, how can they integrate AI more into what they do in their day-to-days, which has been really, really interesting experience.
That's incredible. It sounds as though citation has really kind of developed over time. And I know from us speaking previously, it sounds as though the citation group wasn't initially kind of that focused on AI until the development in that space has rapidly evolved. So, how has that journey been? And what's changed to make the business kind of pivot to focusing on AI and evolving in that way?
So we're a private equity backed business. So our investors are very keen to really drive AI. Now we are really fortunate within Citation. So just over 18 months, 20 months ago, there was the formation of the AI team, which has kind of two real arms. It has it has a data science arm, which has got 4 data scientists in it. And then we've got the other arm, which is more around AI integration and implementation and innovation. So we've got within that we've got chatbots, and within that we've got myself, who I mainly focus on generative AI and the capabilities there. So the bringing the team together was really kind of the key of the head of AI that moved on just not long ago. But it was really. It's really bringing together a group of people, almost like the Avengers, if you like, that you wouldn't necessarily put in the same room together. But actually, we actually have the superpowers to be able to engage. And like you mentioned earlier, like my background with some of the stuff that I've done before is actually relevant here. So you take the teaching, that's really relevant for what I'm doing now, because a lot of what I do is educating people and helping to engage people from a range of different backgrounds. From people that are new in their careers, just come out of university, or just starting in on the sales floor, to people in with C in their title, and helping to everybody to understand where AI fits and what we can do with AI across the business and how we can utilize it. And I'm fortunate enough to I was on leave last week, and I had 73 Teams messages when I came back. Right, which some people might go, oh my god, that's what I can't deal with that. But actually, it's really it's quite, when you think about it, you take a step back and you think about it, it's actually quite warming, because that 73 individuals, and I think most of those conversations were individuals that feel confident and empowered enough to go out and ask a question about a technology they don't necessarily feel like massively confident with, or they do, and they've discovered something new, and it's like, okay, let's have this collaborative experience across the board, and let's try and engage that way.
That's really nice. And it's great to hear actually that your team and wider team are adapting to this new way of working, perhaps. And has that integration always been easy, or have you come across any hurdles or challenges when implementing this?
There's definitely challenges. One of our biggest, one of our biggest challenges is probably the speed at which we want to innovate, and that's really been highlighted by the hackathons over the last few months. And one of the problems is, you've got the speed of innovation, you've got the speed that this technology is changing, and then on the other hand, you've got kind of your infosec and your DPO and everyone that kind of are a little bit more risk averse, that don't want us to necessarily move at that speed. Now, we're really fortunate that we've got we've got a really great relationship with that team, and we have bi-weekly kind of AI governance committee meetings. So with myself, the legal lead, the DPO, the infosec director, so that we're always kind of having a close relationship on what's going on around the business, what people are coming to me with, what people are going to them with, and we can understand what the best tools are, where we shouldn't be using tools, where we should be using tools. We're also able to act really quick on that in that respect. So when DeepSeek came out, we didn't really want the business kind of running with that straight away. We were able to kind of work together very, very quickly and come up with some a new kind of company message on that one. So it's not always been easy, because there is that kind of that grating between that speed at which people want to innovate and the way that we can do the actual compliance side of it. But we have an AI policy that we've adapted since very, very recently, just to be able to try and engage that and allow for a little bit more innovation than we potentially allowed before.
No, that's brilliant. It's fascinating to hear about different businesses and the way that they adopt this, and are their teams on board, or creatures of habit. So that's really interesting. But something I'm curious about more broadly, Rich, is your recruitment side, because of course yourself and your kind of what I would call squiggly career, which doesn't have to be linear. There's no linear way to work in AI or technology, as I've discovered over the years working in cyber and AI. But the UK market and recruiting for people with AI skills or the aptitude to work with AI technology, how have you found recruiting for a team?
It's challenging because you don't find a lot of people that have got years of AI experience. I mean, myself included. I would never say, and in fact, I actively say when I'm doing keynotes, or whatever, I'm not an AI expert. I might be, sometimes the person that knows the most about it in a room, but I would never class myself as an expert on it. So it has been a challenge, and you take for trying to find AI engineers. Like there's that balance between having people that have got the experience, but also having people that are relative. Sometimes you want people that are quite new in their careers to be able to mould. That's quite difficult to find. I mean, historically, I found that universities tend to be a little bit slower on the adoption of kind of some of this, the training on some of this stuff. And education in itself is quite, averse to integrating sort of certainly Gen AI in a lot of places. There's a lot of nervousness around that, and I understand why. I mean, my daughter is just going into secondary school. I'm going around the classrooms and talking to the IT teams. Like, oh no, we don't touch ChatGPT. We won't do anything with that. We're not going to use that to help us code or anything like that. And it's like, well, that's almost you're holding the kids back a bit because when they get to a point where they want to get that's not available. Um, it is a challenge, and no one has got that right path. So it's almost a case of just talking to the people and getting the people and seeing the enthusiasm a lot of the time is what is I think what really engaged me. I think that's part of the reason I was hired, because I was really enthusiastic about what the role had and what we could potentially do with that role. I think it's a lot of kind of reading between the lines on a lot of what people have, the skills that people have got.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, again, the aptitude is worth so much more, isn't it, than a fully kind of polished skill sheet. How would you decipher job titles in AI? It's a tricky one, I know, to ask, but how do we go about this and judging people's experience and skills in the right way?
It's an interesting one. So, within our AI team, we've got myself as the AI innovation lead, and I've got a counterpart that is the implementation lead. And they are quite kind of, they're words for word's sake to an extent, like in terms of the job title. The implementation lead very much deals with chatbots. Me as innovation, actually now, because we've built some things, we've built a system that we call Cache, and we've built some other things around e-learning. Like a lot of that stuff is now going into production. So actually, I'm doing a lot of the implementation stuff and not just the innovation. So in terms of how we generate those job titles, I think it's very much a start at the top, have a head of AI and then work down. Now, I know that some people do have a chief AI officer, which is, again, it's a lovely job title to have. And I think one of the things that's a real challenge is finding people that have the experience to necessarily have a C-suite job with AI in the title. Because it is such a new field, especially when we're talking about like modern AI, like generative AI. Like you can have people that have been working in AI with data for a very, very long time, and that's a little obviously the more traditional AI in the more traditional sense, but often they're more kind of moving over to the kind of the chief like information officers or something like that. They tend to be focused, or chief data officers. They tend to be moving over towards that kind of area. So I think it's really difficult to decide on how you decide for a job. So like engineers, like is it an AI engineer? Is it a Python engineer that just has AI within the job title? I think what we found is when you put AI in the title, it encourages people to apply a little bit more. So you sometimes get a little bit more because people are excited by it. So actually if you just have an engineer or a Python engineer, you could get a certain amount of that, and you actually get quite, in some cases, kind of more junior applications. But if you stick an AI Python engineer, then you sometimes get more mid-level. That's what we found up to this point.
You touched on a few minutes ago, Rich, about the AI e-learning tool that you've been developing at the Citation Group. Can you talk a little bit around that and tell me about it?
Yeah, so e-learning is one of our businesses. We've been looking a little bit about how we can take some of that into into the real world. So we've got a couple of different places that we've looked at that. So one of the ways is creating content with from using generative AI to create some e-learning content, which doesn't take away from our actual production team. We still have our production team that create proper in-depth content. They can use AI in other ways now, so they can use AI to help them with quizzes. One of the biggest problems when you think about when you're generating some AI content, or some e-learning content, is you need to be very like a specialist in that subject to a certain extent. Like you can create a course on, let's say slip, strips, and falls, right? That's one that we use all the time. So slip, strips, and falls, right? But you kind of need to understand how that course all works. But if you've maybe got someone that's off sick that has written the course, and then you need to kind of get that course out, how do you generate the questions? How do you generate all of the quizzes that go with that? But we can use AI to do that, and we can use AI to reference where in the course that it's pulling the question from, and that really helps speed up some of that production time. Some of the other stuff we've been doing, we've very recently released something called ISO Mentor. So ISO Mentor was a training course that we had existing already. It was a course that was run by an individual. He essentially ran courses on the various different ISO certifications that we offer, and did one a week over a 16-week module. The problem with that, obviously, if you sign up to come in at week 7, you've kind of got to wait for to come back round again before you get to week 1 to be able to get the full experience in that respect. So what we've done is we have used 11 labs, which, as I mentioned before, I used voice technology in my previous role. Voice tech is something that I'm really passionate about, and how it can be used to really benefit things. And we used 11 labs, which in my opinion is best in class for text-to-speech at the moment. Okay. Use that to take the scripts that this guy had been using before, to be able to then create, and we had to do some adaptations as you'd expect. So rather than being an interactive course to one that's been delivered by the AI, but take those scripts, put those through 11 labs, and generate those audio files. Take an avatar from HeyGen to top and tail the training, and then we have essentially, and we've got the PowerPoints already existing, and now we've got some AI generated courses. So it's really cool that we've been able to get that out. There's obviously there's costs involved, but there's quite minimal upfront costs in terms of how long it takes you to actually run all those. If you've already got all the scripts, how long it takes you to run them through things like 11 Labs and HeyGen, and then after that, you're then free to go. So it's a really interesting use case. It's in trial at the moment, just seeing how well it goes. But it's really cool to see how we can take content that we've been using and been delivering normally, and actually been able to now deliver that to a wider audience and see how the wider audience accepts it, and how the wider audience interacts with it. Yeah. If they interact the same way as they did with one-to-one.
What I'm finding incredibly interesting about this conversation is how the adoption of AI is within your business, because it as a use case for other businesses to say, okay, that's worked really well for them. Let's not be afraid of this technology. Let's implement it, and let's run the risk and go for it. I think that's really inspiring, actually. So in terms of what's next for Citation, can you tell me a little bit about what you're working on for the future, and where this is going for you?
Yeah, so I mean, we've built another tool which we call Cache. It's the Citation AI Solutions Hub. It's an internal tool, but it has some document checking capabilities and some rating capabilities of documents. So we're going to be looking at rolling that out in a few more places, and we're also going to look at how we can use that to kind of potentially QA some of our work. So can we utilize? We have a Rate My Document feature, which we're able to take a health and safety policy, rate that against health and safety legislation. But can we take our QA guides and rate some audits that our auditors have done against that, and help that speed up that QA process, or even improve that QA process slightly? So maybe have it as an extra step within it. So we're looking at that. We're also looking at ways that we can integrate AI more into our daily lives, into our daily practices, some stuff that's more potentially a little bit more out there and a bit more customer facing, and start to see how we can really innovate with the vast swathes of technology that have been released over the last few years. Can we do anything with transcription? Can we do anything with taking those transcripts and creating something from them? Can we help with audits? How can we take images and use those? Like, how can we identify what's in those images so that our auditors don't have to necessarily write all that up? So yeah, there's lots of different ways in which we are looking at integrating AI across the business, but there's and it's really, really an exciting time. The real challenge has been looking at how do you choose which is the best idea? How do you decide that's the idea that we want to do? We've got a bit of a process now in place where we've got a very kind of strict set of guidelines where we've got, because I've got a spreadsheet with ideas that's hundreds of lines long, because people, as I mentioned, like people come to me and go, oh, can we try this, Rich? It's like, oh, I'll add it to the list. We'll see. Now, some of those ideas are little ones that I can potentially just quickly do and build. And like, if it's a simple RAG agent, then maybe I can just quickly build that. Using using Azure Foundry or something similar. Like, can I just build something quickly there? The other side of it is this a bigger project that's going to have a larger impact? And if that's the case, I look to see if there are other use cases in which I can use it for. So take transcription, for example. I could use that maybe for my fire audits, but could I use that for my food audits? Could I use that for my ISO audits? Where else could I potentially use that? Could I use that for some of the advice that we're giving? So if there's multiple use cases, it bumps its way up the list. And then we do a very, very rigorous discovery process and then the POC. The key thing that I've introduced into this process is what I call POV, or proof of value. So we can prove the concept, we can prove that the technology can do this. That's all great. But is it actually going to bring value to the business? And how much value? Can we put a number on that? And the key point of that POV is once we go into an MVP stage, is we can keep referring back to it. And then we go through this almost infinite loop of going back to that POV. Is it actually doing what it said we thought it would do back then? And how can we improve that with potentially new features?
Your role, Rich, sounds like it's so kind of vital to the business. You're almost at the heart of it because you have to understand all of the business aspects to look at it holistically and say, okay, this is going to benefit this department and not so much here, and really kind of judge that. And so it sounds incredibly interesting.
Oh, it is, and it's funny you say that. So the CTPO said to me, probably after about maybe 3-4 months of being in role, he said to me, Rich, because I'm remote, and I'm like, our offices are in just in Wilmslow, just outside Manchester. I'm just outside Cambridge, so it's a 3-hour drive. So he said, do you feel part of the team, Rich? Because we're only the AI team's only small anyway. And I said, do you know what? Actually, I feel probably more part of the team than maybe other people within tech, because I get to speak to absolutely every area of the business. I can talk to sales literally. I mean, my context switching is mad, but I can be talking to sales 1 minute, marketing the next, engineering the next, product the next, and various different areas like talking about e-learning, and then our SMAS, and our DBS checking side of it. Like, I can be talking to everyone. And actually, you're right. It's very much kind of been able to having that holistic view across what's going on everywhere. And the key thing with that is, if someone in our food alert side of the business has got an idea, and someone in our e-learning side of the business has got an idea, and they both start doing it at the same time, and then we get to a point where we've got two different people doing two different things with two different solutions, that's a problem. So being able to have that overview is great.
Well, Rich, it's been so interesting hearing about your journey and what you're building at the Citation Group. I always love to leave the podcast with one question I ask every guest, and that is, if you could have one superpower to help you in your role, what would it be and why?
Well, if we take out the infinite budget, then I would probably say having the superpower to kind of really engage with InfoSec quicker and be able to get things through that process quicker. So as I said earlier, we've got a process, we've got a really close-knit team of people that we talk to, that I talk to, and we work really well together in getting stuff through. But it does still take, there's a new AI tool out, we want to sign up with a new AI tool. It could still take, 3-4 weeks to be able to get that into production, whereas sometimes we might want to be playing right there and then. Now, we were really fortunate, take those hackathons when Claude 3.7 was released. That was released on the Monday night. We were doing a hackathon on the Tuesday, and we were using it on the Tuesday. So we're really fortunate in that respect, but in other cases, sometimes it can be a little bit slower. So I'd want the ability to fast forward time, I guess, to be able to speed up those processes.
Oh, I like that one. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, hearing about all the great work, and what an interesting role you have. I love the sound of it. Sounds so much fun and a lot of hard work. Yeah, props to you. Thank you so much for your time today and for joining us. I hope you've loved this conversation as much as I have. If our viewers have enjoyed this episode, then please like, subscribe, and follow Rich. Rich, where's the best place that people can follow your updates and what you're up to?
You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Rich815. Rich Merrett 815, sorry. That's MERRETT 815.
Rich, once again, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great having you on. And if anybody didn't know, Rich is one of our judges for the National AI Awards for 2025. Nominations are now open until the 20th of June, so make sure you get those in. It is completely free to do so. And we look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Cheers. Thank you very much for your time.
Bye-bye.